Today, you're gonna join me for a squat PB session. But first, let's talk about some of the best squatters of all time. Now, not all squats are the same. We have wraps, sleeves, equipped. I'll break all that down and talk about what might be the best relative squat of all time. Now, before we get into the best squatters of all time, let me know, who is your #1 squatter of all time? Pop that in the comments. Now we got sleeves, wraps, and raw is actually using sleeves and a belt. So anything I'm talking about, sleeves are the bare minimum. There's no competition where it's no sleeves or no wraps. Now, knee sleeves are often used in tested federations. They provide some support, but there's pretty strict requirements on what the sleeves can be made of. So these actually couldn't be used in competition in, say, the IPF or the World Championships of Natural Powerlifting. It needs to be 9mm neoprene only. This is a little bit thicker, a little bit more support. When someone wears sleeves, it's just a bit of a hug to the knee and gives a little bit of support, but a lot of comfort for them to be able to squat a little bit more. Now, with knee wraps, these are a stretchy material that you basically pull around your knee, create a whole bunch of compression that makes it so that the weight actually has to push you down, and this helps you spring into the squat. Now, advantage is there's a spring. The disadvantage is it works so heavy in knee extension that if you don't train into them, it's common to have your knees kick back out from under you and have you pitch forward, have the bar either come back with you or fall over your head. Now, some of the best lifts ever were done in simple knee wraps and a belt. I'm gonna tell you about all of those, but tell me how much you think the average person should be able to squat. We're gonna go ask the trainers and then we'll get stuck straight in. Head trainer at the gym, Ty, how much do you think the average person should be able to squat?
At least 1 plate per side.
How much can you squat?
When I was around 23 or 24, the last time I squatted, I had hit 405 for like 15 reps.
For 15? Punish. Thanks, bro. What can you squat today? If we stacked it up, can you squat 405 today?
For at least a rep, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I don't know if that's true. Content. We're all in. How much do you think the average person should be able to squat?
Depend on their body weight, twice their body weight.
Average person 2 times body weight. I like it.
Yeah.
Set the bar high.
Maybe I'm optimistic.
What can you squat?
Probably about twice my body weight. I'm probably average.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There you have it.
Yeah.
Same question. Gym owner, Todd, how much do you think the average person should be able to squat?
Yeah, probably twice their body weight. I agree.
Wow. Could you do that?
Absolutely not. I could at one point. Not anymore.
Well, when I was a baby, if you put 10 pounds in my hand, surely I could have stood up.
Pull your hammy.
He can squat twice his body weight, but he's injured at the moment, so he could. He just doesn't want to.
What do you think?
I think people way overestimate the average person. Like, the average person could not put a barbell on their back and squat, first of all. So average person, you start with like a goblet squat, and I think average man probably should be able to goblet squat about 50 pounds, average woman maybe about 30 pounds. People in the fitness space don't understand how unfit people are outside of the fitness space. I work with some of those people, and like, there are people who, if you challenge them to stand off a chair without pushing on their legs, they just can't do it. So one thing I think we should really put as a point of focus and emphasis is that if you're one of those people, or someone in your life is one of those people, and like all they can do is squat the bar or squat 1 plate, like these are little things to be celebrated. I think that's one of the things that makes it harder to come into the gym if you're not fit or not strong, because now you're amongst the fittest people in the community. And it's very different if you're talking at the gym and the average person here, or the average person at the movie theater, because it's actually shocking how little the average person can do. And it really just takes a little bit of effort. So I think let's just normalize not being as capable as the people who come to the gym every day, because obviously you can't be. I'm gonna tell you about 5 of the best squatters of all time in no particular order. I'm gonna start with who I think is the most legendary and iconic to people in the sport, and this is Ed Cohen. Ed is not a tall guy, not an overly large guy. He competed in the 100 kilo weight class at 220 pounds, and his best squat in competition was 947 pounds. Now that is wrapped, but regardless, doing that at 220, we're talking in excess of 4 times body weight squat at not an incredibly light body weight. That is absurd. Next, we'll talk about Ray Williams. Ray absolutely shattered the scene in natural drug-tested IPF in sleeves. He was a very, very big man, and he still is, but he squatted 1,000 pounds raw, just sleeves and a belt, like you would see the traditional person in a gym. He also did this on a standard power bar. It's not a squat bar where we're using the squat bar today. It's a little bit thicker, a little bit more stable. On a normal bar, 1,000 pounds would be wobbling back and forth. So it wasn't just the strength to complete the lift, but also the strength to stabilize is absolutely absurd. Next, another very famous person in powerlifting, but not hugely active on social media, so not everyone knows about this guy. His name is Andrei Milanichev, and he is probably the best powerlifter of all time when it comes to non-tested, wrapped. He's won Big Dogs before, which is a very, very popular, high-paying competition over in Australia. His best squat is 1,058 pounds. Now, incredible in and of itself, but if we compare that to Ray Williams and you take the wraps off and put sleeves on and you drug test, and he was only 58 pounds off, I think you give some context to how good Ray Williams actually was. Next, we'll talk about one of my competitors who I have 7 weeks until I go head to head with him in squat, and that's Hafthor Bjornsson. He's not a squat specialist, he's 6'8", and he has to move the bar a very long way, does not tend well to squatting heavy, but he completed a 420 kilo squat, which is among the best squats of all time. But what's more impressive is, I believe it was 455, 465 kilos, where he did squat and stand it up, but he was red lighted on depth. But it wasn't absurd. It was very, very close, in my opinion, to being a reasonable good lift. And for a man who's 6'8", that is an absolutely absurd achievement. Now we'll go to the other side, and not necessarily peak strength, but peak endurance. I think you guys know who I'm gonna talk about, and that is Tom Platz. Now, Tom was not a particularly large guy, but he could do some insane sets of squats. His most iconic Tom Platz squat challenge, he did 525 pounds for 23 reps. For context, I am probably 1.5 times his body weight, and I nearly killed myself going 525 for 24 reps. Go ahead and check out that video right up there. But without further ado, I'm gonna get into my big squat. For context, I'm squatting shy of 900 pounds today. I wouldn't even crack this list for what I'm doing, but hopefully we can peek into something pretty special in a few weeks' time. How was that? The wobble on the bar was harder than the weight itself. With calibrated plates, that would be much, much easier. You see, I couldn't actually descend how I wanted, but I think I would have been good for probably 3 there if I had to. Squats are in a good place. The squat competition seems to be a secondary thing for a few weeks' time. Pop in the comments, where do you think I'll end up? I think we'll be good for something big. Right, so 392 moved pretty smooth. If that was with calibrated plates and the bar was steady, that would have been absolutely fired up. Now, it's not as simple as like, what's your max squat now? And that's why it's really hard. You can't always program based on 1 rep max. If you're peaking into a max lift, you have to spend a good chunk. Depending on how experienced you are, it could be as short as 6 weeks and as long as 20 weeks to be able to actually work your way up to what you might be capable of right now. That's because our brain communicates to our body through motor units, and when it's a complicated movement like squatting, you have to get all those motor patterns firing perfectly to be able to execute the movement. Now, I have programs that help you out with exactly this. There are links down in the description that should be able to help you out, regardless of if your goal is deadlifting, powerlifting, strongman in general. The important thing is following a well-structured program. Now, all of these powerlifters I just talked about who have these massive squats, it's important to recognize that their primary and only goal is how strong can they get? How much can they squat, bench press, deadlift? Where in strongman, it's just not the case. Right now, I'm prepping for a show that has squat for reps. And so having a high squat is going to be useful, but I also need to be able to do a max deadlift. Okay, so heavy lifts, of course, but then I also need to be able to do medleys. I also need to be able to do log clean and press for reps, and axle clean and press for reps, and dumbbell for reps. So I need to keep some level of cardiovascular fitness, and there is a crossover effect, an interference effect. Now, this is overstated for the most part, where the only people who actually suffer from the interference effect are people in my population, where you're close to your genetic potential and strength, but your relative aerobic fitness is poor. For people who are aerobically fit or not at the absolute peak strength, you can go train aerobic fitness and you actually benefit from that. The benefits, we're talking increased capillary density, we're talking increased blood flow, increased energy, lower markers of inflammation, everything that's gonna help you recover not only between sets, not only between reps, but between sessions, and you'll be able to handle more total volume. Of course, it then becomes a careful game of how much energy are you allocating to things that aren't your specialty and taking away from things that are, and that's why you should actually have to plan out the whole year. And the less experienced you are, the more times you can peak during a year. But for someone like myself, there are times of year where I actually am looking to be more aerobically fit, but that's obviously well away from competition because that aerobic fitness is gonna help me down the track. If you're someone who's relatively average or you're newer into your lifting journey, improving your aerobic fitness is gonna have a positive correlation to your strength outcome. And I think I've proved that with my history of endurance sports coming over to strongman. I think I was accidentally cross-training extremely well. If you cross-train and your general preparedness across the board is really good, your transition to be the strongest version of yourself is going to be substantially easier. So please take that to heart. Not only will it help your fitness, but it's going to help your outcomes in terms of your primary goals and your primary strength goals. Now, for the average gym goer, if you're thinking about all this stuff and what would be most appropriate for you, we're talking sleeves. Sleeves are going to be the best because they provide just a little bit of compression. It's not going to throw your technique off at all, but it's going to make your knees feel more comfortable. The way that tendons work is they go into the bone. Now, if they pull straight on the bone, that's the most irritating. And if you can have some sort of pressure to distract that and say, take this angle and turn it into this angle, well, now it's less pressure off of the bone, meaning that you're inherently going to be a little bit safer. And that's why it feels so much better when you have knee sleeves on. Now, it's not unhealthy or bad or nothing like that to squat without knee sleeves, but if you want to push your strength and you want to push your results a little bit more, push your squat, knee sleeves are going to be a really good go. And once you use them, you'll discover why you don't want to stop using them. Now, this is not going to be at the detriment of your ability to squat without knee sleeves on. It's not going to mask any sort of pain. All it is that little bit of compression. Once you go up into higher levels, only then should you start considering knee wraps. The injury risk with knee wraps is so high, not necessarily because the wraps themselves, and it actually does save your knees to an extent, but because it's going to allow you to lift so much more weight that it's going to be a little bit less safe on the rest of your body. For example, I can deadlift somewhere around 440 kilos raw, and right now I could probably squat about 440 kilos raw, but I'm nowhere near feeling confident and comfortable to be able to squat that without a big prep. You also, with the wraps, it's not wearing wraps or not wearing wraps like you would with knee sleeves. You then have to determine how tight do I want the wraps, and it's a whole learning phase to that, where in competition, the wraps are so tight that the pain around your knee is excruciating, and the pain on your skin around your knee is absolutely brutal. So even today, I was at maybe 70% of the strength that the wraps could be, because it's not my ultimate objective to lift as much weight as possible. I'm looking to lift relatively heavy weight for a good number of reps. Now, take from what you will from that, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that. Leave a moose dropping. Thank you very much for watching, guys. As per usual, lift heavy, be kind, and we'll catch you in the next video.